A coalition of global second-hand clothing industry leaders and trade bodies has raised alarm over the United Nations Environment Programme, or UNEP's, handling of its Circularity and Used Textile Trade project. In an open letter, the group, led by the Ghana Used Clothing Dealers Association, accuses UNEP of relying on unverified data and rushing consultations on guidelines meant to distinguish between reusable clothing and textile waste, a move they warn could undermine global textile sustainability efforts. Joining us now to further discuss is Atobrah Edward Brinkley, General Secretary of the Ghana Used Clothes Dealers Association. Atobrah, thank you for joining us. Good morning to you.
Thank you for having me.
Let's start with a bit of more background on the Ghana Used Clothes Dealers Association. What exactly do you do?
This association is a body for all traders in the second-hand clothing industry in Ghana. It coordinates with government agencies and also coordinate with stakeholders like the retailers, the middlemen. We have middlemen, we have the importers, and then suppliers.
So what essentially was this UNEP's Circularity and Used Textile Trade project meant to do, and what concerns do you have with it?
UNEP Circularity and Textile Use Trade project aims to define what is textile waste versus used textiles that can be traded. And also it's a global guideline for the trade of used textiles. However, if it's not done well, it risks international used clothing trade, which will affect millions of livelihood of Africans that rely on the trade for jobs and for access to affordable clothing. In Ghana, we have about 2.5 million Ghanaians who are directly into the trade. So if this is not reviewed and if it is rushed, it's going to affect livelihood. Yes, we recommend UNEP's commitment to textile sustainability. However, the global guideline must be built on transparency and inclusiveness so that the process can be effective and equitable.
So essentially, the concerns that you have are that these current draft guidelines will risk affecting the second-hand industry in Ghana and in terms of taking away livelihoods. Is there another concern or risk as that it can pose to even other African countries and not just Ghana?
According to Kenya's reports, Kenya have about 2 million people who are also into the trade. And it's also going to affect Kenyans and so many African countries that are into the trade. And we are talking about livelihood that is attached to this trade. So if this guideline is not done very well, millions of people are going to lose their jobs.
What would you have preferred, and what level of consultation or engagement would you have liked to see from UNEP on this before releasing these guidelines?
What I want to see is that the consultation process was rushed with limited access to materials and dominance of certain voices. So what we want UNEP to do is to not to rush the consultation process and not to finalize the process, but to also bring out the methodologies that they have so that we can all sit down and review the methodology. And also the definition of waste must be clear to all stakeholders. And these are the things that we are talking about so that we can align ourselves with the guidelines so that it will help livelihoods.
How big of an industry is this used second-hand clothing industry on the continent, and how are we doing when it comes to the second-hand textile sustainability efforts?
Industry in Africa is very huge. In Ghana, about 93% of Ghanaians patronize second-hand clothing. And I think so is so many of the African countries that also have a higher percentage of people who patronize second-hand clothing. So In a nutshell, you could see that majority of Africans rely on second-hand clothing to for livelihood and to also put food on their table. It has taken so many people through school, and the industry is so huge that it's commands about $49 million in the industry. It's a huge industry in Africa that we need to take care of and to review these guidelines to help Africans.
What steps do you hope then now that UNEP will take to restore confidence and ensure that there is a fair, there's a transparent process going forward?
What we want to propose to UNEP is that they must involve independent and regionally grounded experts who are not biased, who are local traders. This will also involve people who are directly into the trade to define what is waste. For example, in Ghana, according to our research, which was conducted by Ghana Institute of Public Management Administration, GIMPA, in Ghana, conducted by Dr. Odonko, less than 5% of second-hand clothing are unsold. And even with that, people use that one for so many products like mops, like pillowcases, and so many things. So it creates even the less than 5% that are unsold, also creates more jobs for other people to also have their ends meet. So this project must be halted for global stakeholding so that we can also have transparency in data and be confident in the methodology that they are using.
Any plans to approach the EU Commission? This project is funded by them in case UNEP does not respond accordingly or on time for you. And what kind of support would you need to approach the EU Commission?
Yes, we've sent our open letters to them for review and to hold on with the finalization of the guidelines. So we are waiting for their responses.
All right. Thank you so much, Atobrah, and have a good morning.
Thank you for having me.
Our pleasure. Atobrah Edward Brinkley is General Secretary of the Ghana Used Clothes Dealers Association, and they are raising an alarm over the UNEP's, or the United Nations Environment Programme's, handling of its Circularity and Used Textile Trade project as second-hand clothing industry leaders.